Who is going to win Anarchy in the Arena? Who will be the winners of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament? And that means who is going to All In to go and compete in the major championship matches. All that to discuss and much more for AEW Double or Nothing 2025 match card and predictions. Let's quickly go through the match card we will see on the show. For the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, on the men's side, we've got Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page. On the women's side, we've got Mercedes Mone taking on Jamie Hayter. For Anarchy in the Arena, we've got Kenny Omega, Swerve, Strickland, Willow, Nightingale, the Opps of Samoa Joe, Shibata and Powerhouse Hobbs. They'll be going against the Death Riders, of course that's John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Marina, Shafir and Wheeler Yuta, along with the Young Bucks, Matt and Nicholas Jackson. For the Continental Championship, we've got Kazuchuka Okada defending against Speedball Mike Bailey. For the AEW Tag Team Championships, we've got the Hurt Syndicate defending against the Sons of Texas. We have FTR going against Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Garcia. We have a stretcher match with Mark Briscoe versus Ricochet. And of course, we've got the AEW Women's World Championship on the line. Timeless Toni Storm defending against Mina Shirakawa. In fact, let's kick off this video strong and start with the AEW Women's World Championship match then. Timeless Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa, a rematch from Forbidden Door last year. Of course, Timeless Toni Storm won on that occasion. The one major difference from then to now, Mina Shirakawa is now a full-time member of the AEW roster. That's right, she is All Elite, and she's only been All Elite for a couple of weeks, winning an eliminator match to get herself this opportunity, and of course defeating Julia Hart last night on AEW Dynamite at the time of recording. So, I mean, she's only just joined the company and she's already going for the top title. She is familiar, of course, with AEW fans, so in that way it's not strange, but in another way, if she doesn't win, slight nitpick from me, and this is coming from a Mina Shirakawa fan, where does she go next after here? That is my slight concern, because my prediction is Timeless Toni Storm is going to retain here. For me, there is actually history with Jamie Hayter in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament final, and also there was a dream match for Mercedes Mone waiting. We've seen Mone versus Shirakawa happen in Japan, of course, and as well with the AEW and New Japan show they did at the start of the year as well. Jamie Hayter, of course, as well, against Mina Shirakawa would be a fantastic match, but for me, it just doesn't have the stakes for me for All In. I think there is a bigger match on the table at this present time. So for that reason, I'm going for Timeless Toni Storm to retain. And well, I guess we can move on then to the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, because who will be the challenger? The TBS champion right now, Mercedes Mone, and of course, Jamie Hayter. Like I say, there is arguments for both sides there. Jamie Hayter was injured at Double or Nothing a couple of years ago from the Outcast, wasn't it? It was actually Timeless Toni Storm was a part of this group then, with of course Saraya and of course Ruby Soho as well at that time, and of course, well, now things have really massively changed a couple of years down the line, but they could revisit that into a big match. However, the dream match, I'm guessing, feels like it will be Timeless Toni Storm versus Mercedes Mone. Mercedes Mone has not been pinned in All Elite Wrestling. She's held the TBS Championship now going on 12 months at this point. I think it is time she goes for the top championship. It's the biggest show they're going for the year for All In here in Texas, so it makes the most logical sense here to do the biggest match possible. Timeless Toni Storm versus Mercedes Mone. So I think Mercedes Mone will defeat Jamie Hayter, and what I'm hoping on the build between now and All In, I'm hoping that Mercedes Mone is cost that TBS Championship so it can be dropped, can go to someone else on the AEW roster, perhaps thanks to Toni Storm. Maybe someone like Mina Shirakawa could win that, so she has some direction of where to go to after that. Maybe we get Shirakawa versus Jamie Hayter for the TBS Championship and All In, but hey, that's really going into speculation station. So my predictions will be Timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. I think Mercedes Mone wins the Owen. I think we get those two at All In. Let's move on to the AEW World Tag Team Championships. We've got the Hurt Syndicate with a new member of MJF also going to be in their corner along with MVP, going against the Sons of Texas. Of course, that is Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara, and they are the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Well, we could say that Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara have been there since day one. Of course, it is the 6-year anniversary since the first proper AEW show, which was Double or Nothing. But when it comes to prediction, unfortunately for those two, what have you done for me lately? I'm going for the Hurt Syndicate Syndicate to retain here. Will MJF be a factor? Time will tell on that one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with that dynamic of MJF and the Hurt Syndicate going towards All In season. But yeah, Hurt Syndicate to retain those tag team championships. I think it would be a really fun swerve though if MJF was to come in and accidentally cost the group this Sunday, but I just don't see that happening. It feels too soon at this particular time for that to happen. Another tag team match we've got on the show is FTR with Stokely Hathaway, a lovely note combination, going against Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness. Look, I'm never going to complain seeing Nigel McGuinness compete once again in a All Elite Wrestling ring. I think it's really a special occasion we get to see that. Of course, Nigel has come to the defense of Tony Schiavone on recent weeks of Collision. FTR, of course, have gone to make those attacks on Schiavone, and of course in their recent heel turn, turning on Adam Copeland, also Daniel Garcia as well. Kind of makes sense that this tag team match has been thrown together. For me, FTR is the ones picking up the victory here. That makes the most logical sense. You build them up as heels, and eventually when Adam Copeland makes a return, or Cope I should say, that's when we can start building to the idea of FTR potentially losing a tag team match. However, I don't think that is going to happen until we get a reunited Cope with Christian Cage, which will that be in time for All In? We'll have to wait and see. At this stage, I wouldn't be more surprised if that is actually dragged out to All Out, as that will be in Canada later this year. Next, we've got a stretcher match between Mark Briscoe and Ricochet. What a fun stipulation this one's going to be. I've not seen a stretcher match for years. For those that are unaware of the rules for a stretcher match, you must beat down your opponent, put him on a stretcher, and then once you've got him on the stretcher, you need to wheel him into the back of the ambulance, and when you close that ambulance door, that's when you have the victor. Of course, we've had some altercations between Briscoe and Ricochet in recent weeks on AEW TV. Ricochet, of course, winning a singles match on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago. And of course, this past week, Mark Briscoe actually tried to get Ricochet on the stretcher, which he successfully did. Tried to go with an elbow drop from the top rope, but of course, just before he was going to jump off, Ricochet got off the stretcher. You need to give people the feel-good moment here. Ricochet is a bad guy. He's doing excellent heel work. He's had the program with Zach Gowen recently. Of course, Zach Gowen has had a prosthetic leg as well. Professional wrestler, better known from the Ruthless Aggression era in WWE. Great to see him actually come back, and might tell you what an impressive performance Zach Gowen had on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago as well against Ricochet. But Ricochet, look, he is someone that people love to hate, so it is time to get Ricochet to get some comeuppance. So for that reason, I think Ricochet should go in the back of the ambulance. Mark Briscoe for me to pick up the victory. For the AEW Continental Championship, we've got Kazuchuka Okada defending against Speedball Mike Bailey. Really excited for this one. This one could be one of the matches of the night here. Speedball has been impressing me so much since going to AEW. He's continued on the great work we've seen him in TNA previously. He's actually been yet to be pinned as well in AEW. If he's actually been involved in matches where he's not won, it's usually been multi-man matches like a three-way or a four-way or tag team matches, and someone else has had their shoulders pinned to the mat. So he's been protected pretty well up until this point, but unfortunately all good things must come to an end. I think Kazuchika Okada will be picking up the win in this one, and I'm expecting Okada versus Omega at All In July. Speaking of Kenny Omega, let's talk about Anarchy in the Arena. Kenny Omega, Swerve Strickland, Willow Nightingale, and the Opps taking on the Death Riders and the Young Bucks. Of course, the Young Bucks came and helped Jon Moxley retain the championship, of course, at AEW Dynasty. Of course, they took out Swerve Strickland in that championship match. That started almost a bit of an alliance, if you will, with the Death Riders and the Young Bucks. Of course, the Bucks doing that, of course, for Hangman, of course, at that point, which, of course, I don't think Hangman really had intentions of getting involved in that match, but still the Bucks went and did their business for themselves, and like I say, since they've been trying to win over the Death Riders to their side, and it seems like things are kind of going to plan at the moment. Of course, there's been stuff going on with the Bucks and Kenny Omega, of course, not on the same page. 10 years of friendship has gone down the drain. Willow Nightingale has been involved in about 3 feuds now involving the Death Riders, and still yet to get her comeuppance, and of course, she usually has the brawls with Mina Shafir as well, which means it's good to see them both involved in the same match. The Opps, though, won the Trios Championships from the Death Riders just a few short weeks ago, and that led to Samoa Joe versus Jon Moxley in a steel cage match at Beach Break. However, that set up this Anarchy in the Arena match with Moxley retaining on the night. Really looking forward to this match. It should be as fun as it always is. Anarchy in the Arena has always been a fun time in AEW, and it's good to see that they have found a way to get it on the show again this year. One key note though that we should keep in mind is Gabe Kidd has been coming out and helping the Death Riders and Jon Moxley as of late in some of the beatdowns. So is there going to be a situation that Gabe gets involved again at Double or Nothing? Does this end up being 7-on-7? Will someone else come out and attend and help as well on the face side? That would be interesting to see what will happen there. Is it something that's going to help to build for Forbidden Door later in the year? Of course, Forbidden Door will be taking place in London in the United Kingdom, of course, in August, which of course again will be AEW versus New Japan, and it could be getting a Blood and Guts match that could be following this, because that's usually the transition. Anarchy in the Arena first, Blood and Guts second, so that was not always the closing part of the feud. For that reason, I'm gonna go for the Death Riders and for the Young Bucks to pick up the victory. I think Gabe Kidd will be the difference, but I would love to see the faces actually win here, because Moxley's not defending the championship. He does not need to be involved in the decision. You have a Wheeler Yuta right there who can take the pinfall, and we can move things on storyline wise, because for me, I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting a bit bored of the Death Riders. I've not really been a fan of it since the off, really. So for me now, we're about 8 months in. I'm hoping that Moxley's time of dropping that championship happens at All In, regardless if it's against Hangman or it's against Will Ospreay, which we'll be discussing in a couple of moments. But one thing's for sure, I'm going to go for the heels to win, because they always seem to find a win. It's their kind of match. But at the same time, we've seen Strickland being involved in some bloody violent matches, Kenny Omega as well. I would love to see the faces get the win here, because you can close everything off. Willow doesn't need to be involved in this story anymore. The Opps can move on, do something different with the Trios Championships. We can move Omega on with Okada. So yeah, for that reason, I'd like to see the faces win. But as I say, I'm going to go for the heels to win. I think it moves on the Blood and Guts, and I think the faces will win there. And last but not least, what needs to be the main event of this show, especially after Dynamite last night. Wow, I was wowed by that segment with Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay both making to the finals of the Men's Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Who will be the winner not only of the trophy, but of course getting the championship match at All In Texas in July. There is arguments for both sides, and especially after the segment last night we saw, and I've even mentioned in the last match, the fact the Young Bucks are on side currently with the Death Riders, and they did the dirty on Swerve as well in help of Hangman. There is some long-term storytelling that could tell you that Hangman could be the guy, because Hangman has beaten Jon Moxley before as well. However, someone that's wrestled Jon Moxley twice and has lost is Will Ospreay, but he says if he knows if he can beat that Hangman Adam Page that beat Jon Moxley this Sunday, he knows then he can beat Moxley. Of course, it's a situation here. Will Ospreay wants this. He wants this so much, and he's going to give everything to do so, because he wants to be champion for, the Forbidden Door show. He wants to go with that title to London, of course, 30 minutes away from his home, where all his supporters were from when he started professional wrestling, and to show his family himself as the world champion. On the other side, though, Hangman Page needs this. He's been someone who's been pretty much, by the sound of it, a bad family man. He's been someone who's lost himself over the last couple of years and needs to be rediscovered. He needs this opportunity. It really, really is a recipe for what I think could be match of the night, and even match of the year. I'm expecting that with these two of my favorites in AEW, not just right now, but pretty much of all time. I'm going to go for Will Ospreay to pick up the win. I just think it makes the most sense going forward. We've seen Hangman versus Moxley before, even though we've seen that Hangman has got the job done. Will Ospreay has openly said that he has got Hangman Page's back if Hangman wins on Sunday, and he hopes that Hangman would have his back if he was to win. That just throws a more interesting storyline narrative for me. So Will Ospreay to win. What is the situation with Hangman Page? Is he going to be someone that takes this gracefully and tries to help the benefit of AEW to get the World Championship back? And of course we can see the beautiful gold belt once again. Or is it a situation that Hangman actually will go on the side with the Bucks that can reunite stuff with Swerve again, and we get a final chapter of Swerve and Hangman at All In? Something I expect to happen regardless whether Hangman is face or heel, because he needs to close that chapter once and for all. So that's my predictions there for AEW Double or Nothing 2025. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, share this with a friend as well, subscribe if you're new here as well or not subscribed to the channel already, and of course hit the notifications bell so you can be updated each and every time I do a video on this channel. Thanks for watching. Look after yourselves and each other. Make sure to like, share and subscribe if you want to see more from the channel. In the meantime, check out this video on the side of your screen right now. Take care, all the best. See you for the next one.